Hello, I'm Professor Toybox, and I've just started recreating my all-time favorite Star Wars game, Dark Forces, inside Disney Infinity. Today I'm continuing to work on the first mission from that game, which has the player finding and stealing the Death Star plans from a secret Imperial base. As I mentioned last time, this mission in the original game takes place on a planet called Danuta, but Dark Forces was released in 1995, and we now know from the recent Rogue One movie that the Death Star plans are actually kept in a vault in Citadel Tower on the planet Scarif. So today I'm back in my Scarif toy box with Darth Vader, and we're going to build Citadel Tower. Here are some pictures of the tower from the Rogue One movie so you can see what we're building. There are a lot of angled and slanted surfaces on this tower, which is going to make it tricky to build this. I don't have terrain pieces or blocks with some of these shapes, so I won't be able to recreate this precisely, but I have a design that will look close enough, I think, for our purposes. So as we get started here, we'll go ahead and come into the terrain drawer. And I've got this small terrain block selected here. And we're going to drop this down right over here and line it up with this piece. And this will be the back side of the tower. And I'm going to go ahead and set the texture for this to be the Imperial Space Station. And I'm going to set that to be my theme. And this will be the sole theme that I use for the terrain blocks. And we're going to go ahead and put down 3 of these across. This will be the back side of the tower and the full width of it. And I'm going to do 1 more row of these. There we go. And then coming around on the front side, we're going to set a small platform up over here. And this will be the main floor for the tower. And then we can use these angled surfaces over here for the slanted edges of the tower on either side. And these are going to be 13 high, so I've already got 1. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 1 more makes 13. And we'll come over to this side and do the exact same thing. Be nice if we had a taller piece with this angled surface on it, but we don't, so we'll have to make do with what we've got. Okay, and then I'm going to come over to these smaller blocks over here, and we're going to work on the doorway for the tower. So we're going to come down here to the bottom of this and make sure that's lined up. And I need 2 high on that. And then 1 more on the front going this way. And that's the doorway to the tower right there. Now we're going to need some blocks for the stairs and the edging pieces on either side. So we're going to start with this guy. And on these blocks, if we come in here, fortunately we do have an Imperial Space Station texture on here that we can use. Got to scroll down a little ways to get to it, unfortunately. There it is, and we'll set that to be our theme. And that matches the terrain blocks, fortunately, so that's really nice. Because we can get some shapes here with these blocks that we don't have in the terrain drawer. And there's the entrance for that. And we'll need some stairs. So we'll come over here and select a stairway piece. There we go. So now we have our entrance into the tower. And we need a little filler block behind here. one on the other side. There we go, that's starting to take shape. And then on the pictures, you saw there was kind of like a little protrusion out here. And so I think for that, about the best thing I've been able to determine that we could do is something like this. And I believe we want to come like this. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. And then one more underneath over here. I'm looking at my drawing that I made so I can make sure I duplicate this precisely. And then we'll come back up to the blocks drawer and pick up a couple of slanted blocks for the underside of this. For those of you who are following along in your own toy boxes and building this, feel free to pause my video at any time so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I know I'm going kind of fast. I'm trying to keep this video short so I don't want to linger too long on any one thing here. There we go. That looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, next we're going to need some more terrain blocks here. And we're going to go ahead and build the tower upward at this point. And so we need some of these big blocks again. And this is going to sit in here like so. Make sure I got the right height on this. 2, 3, 4, yep. Okay. And it's too far back. Alright, so there we go. And I need these 5 high. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. The Citadel Tower is pretty large. Here we go. So the tower's starting to take shape now. Okay, so now we need to angle this thing. And I wish I had some slanted surfaces that could go upward here towards the back corner of this, but we don't. So we're going to have to kind of finagle something in here. So we'll come back over to this. And make sure I got this correct. So for here, we're going to come back and start right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And same for the other side. Like that. And then we'll fit some terrain blocks around this. So we've got that one we can put in here, and another smaller one on the end there. And then the next level up, we just need one of these. And then 2 of those, and one more right there. So that kind of builds a somewhat slanted surface. It's a little choppy, but it'll do. About the best we've got. And then we'll fill in some of the gaps here. Not that you're necessarily going to see this from the ground, but you will see this when you're flying TIE Fighter around in the air. And another gap over here. And I could put some blocks under here. And if I were walking around on this, I probably would. But since we're not, I can actually take that one back out, I think. Oh, that one. So I think that will do. That'll save us a little bit of memory there. The only downside, though, as you can see, maybe we do need these, because I can see some gaps in here between these blocks. So yeah, I guess we'll need these to fill those gaps. The blocks in the blocks drawer have rounded edges, so unfortunately, yeah, that looks better. Okay, and then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. It took me a little while to play with these terrain pieces and these blocks and try to come up with a design for Citadel Tower that looked something like what you see in the movie. It was kind of tricky, but I think this turned out pretty decent considering what we have to work with. I've seen a few other videos where people have tried to build Scarif in their toy boxes, and some of them have used the Jedi Temple, and some have used some other toys, and of course that big Endor shield generator dish. And those looked okay, but not really happy with those for my own toy box. So I wanted something that looked more like what you see in the Rogue One movie. Of course, I'm not trying to diss what other people have built. There we go. So let's see what we got. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, now we need to continue that stepped slope on the back side. On the back side of the tower. And we'll have to switch to some smaller blocks here for these surfaces. And something even smaller still. For that. And then just plug in the holes. There we go. Nice. I think, though, we may need to fill this gap here. So that block probably won't work. We'll need to do this. There we go. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Okay, now we'll get up to the top of the tower. And now the tower narrows a bit. And so we're going to need to put in some additional blocks here. And I want to put one block this wide back here. And then one of these here. And a slope surface on the front, like that. Then we'll come back over to the blocks drawer, and we'll have to put down 6 of these because this tower is 6 wide. Like that. And the same on the other side. Here we are. And then as before, we just fill in the gaps. And actually, we do need one more block right here in between these, so let's drop that in like that. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And to save memory, so I don't put a whole bunch of little blocks in here, we can drop that one in. And the surface won't look quite as choppy when we do that either. There we go. So now we've narrowed it down. And the top of the tower is starting to come together. Now for the very top of the tower, we'll drop another block wide. We're going to make it narrow to this width. And we'll need to put in a few more of these to make that happen. And we do that on both sides. And that adds in some of the little details that you see in the movie. With the sloped edges as you go up the tower. And now for the very top of the tower, we have one of these. Here we go. And for the crowning tip top of the tower, we need the dish. And I think this little satellite dish from the decorations drawer, I'd like something a little bit bigger. But unfortunately, the Endor dish that's up here, let's see, is it under set pieces? Yeah, that one is much too big. And so that's not going to work. But that little satellite dish will do. That's enough to give you the idea. And you're not going to see that quite so much from the ground. But you will see that when you're flying the TIE fighter around up in the air and making your escape. So as we back over here towards the shuttle where we start this mission and we look over towards the tower, I think that looks pretty good. That looks a lot like the Citadel Tower on Scarif. So far so good. A couple more details here. Mainly the doors. So one of the things I would like as you go through here is we're going to enter this tower and we actually come in here and enter another toy box. And so we don't really need an interior here. And the other thing I'm thinking too is the fact that because these islands are so short, because I didn't want to build them on huge blocks that stick way up out of the water. It just didn't look right. Because the islands are so short, there's nowhere to put the creativitoys. And so one of the things I think we can do is if we put this back here to kind of seal off the back side of this. And I believe, yep. That kind of gives us a little pocket in here where we can hide the creativitoys. And so I can take, for example, the sky changer that I'm using and some of the enemy generators. And we can tuck those away in here out of sight where nobody will see them. Same with the boom box. And as you look from the outside, you're never going to see those. Now these surfaces here are pretty shiny, which you wouldn't expect to see looking in here. And so I'm actually going to change the style for these to something maybe a little flatter. Let's scroll over this way, because there's an asphalt texture that I really like to use. It's pretty dull and pretty black. Here we go, blacktop. And we'll set that one to be the same. And now that looks more like a hole going back there than an actual surface. So I like that. That'll work good. And then, like I said, we have a pocket behind those where we can hide some creativitoys. So when you get the blast door open and you go up the stairs, we'll have a trigger area up in here that will send you into the interior toy box for the tower, which we'll build in another video shortly. The last thing I need here are some blast doors that you have to open in order to get in here, because initially when you come up this is going to be closed. So we're going to need a couple more surfaces. So let's come back down to the blocks drawer, and we're going to use this same surface, and I'm going to need 2 of these basically to cover this area, and we'll put it right in here at the top of the stairs. And for right now I'm going to drop these down underneath the terrain. And for the surface on these, we need something that looks kind of like a door. So let's come back over here towards the Star Wars textures for these blocks. So we could use something like that. I think that would work pretty well. Let me set that to be my theme, because I'm going to need 2 of these. There we go. And as you saw, those are not going to fit inside that door by us placing them there. Plus we need them to move. So I'm going to drop down a couple of paths that we can attach these to. And these will need to be centered about here, because one door is going to come from here 3 blocks wide. The other door is going to come here 3 blocks wide. So we're going to put one here. And then I want this to slide upward 3 high. So that's 1, 2 blocks. And it probably only needs to come up 2 high, actually, considering the fact that the doorway here is only 2 high. And I think I'd like to set this inside a little bit. So we'll put that point there. Let me move this one down. There we go. So now that lines up. And we need a second path over here for the other door. And a point coming up 2 blocks high puts us right there. And those are the paths those 2 doors will move on. So now we'll come in here and set the properties for this. And for each of these, we're going to set this to be active is fine. Speed doesn't need to be quite that fast, although it doesn't really matter, I suppose. We leave it 100, because when this opens, we're not going to be standing here watching it. So we'll leave it as 100. Whoops. Looped is off. Auto start, I want to turn that off because I don't want these doors to move when I first attach them. And the rest of those are fine. And we'll set the other path to be the same way. Basically turning off auto start objects. Okay, so now we'll come down here and grab the doors. So the logic menu for this one, new path connection. We're going to attach that one to this path. Oops. There we go. And that puts that one in place. And then logic menu for that block wall, new path connection. And we'll put that one in place. So there we go. Blast doors are closed. Now we'll come in here and set the path properties for each of these walls. Speed is fine. Orient. The main thing we need to set is the movement style, and we're going to do one way and stop. And same with this other one. Movement style, one way and stop. Alright, so there's our doors, and they're closed. And they're on the path to open it, but we need a way to open it. So for this, we're going to need another creativity, and I'm going to need a dual action trigger. Here we go. And we also need the two computer terminals that we're going to hack into. And those are already in place on each of the islands. So we'll come over here to this island first. So when the player comes over here and interacts with this terminal, open the logic menu for that. And we'll come under Properties. And the character type. So this is the type of character that has to be here in order to be able to hack into this terminal. The default is tech, and there's a number of Star Wars characters that have the tech skill. Han Solo is one of them, and there are a few others. Princess Leia, I think, is another. But we can come down here and set this to be any, and then it doesn't matter which Star Wars character we're going to use. Any of them can hack into this. And time limit is fine. I leave that set at the default. So then new logic connection, when the terminal is hacked, we'll come back over here to our dual action trigger. And we'll set that to be input 1. And again, the dual action trigger basically has two inputs. Both of those have to be completed and before the dual action trigger will fire. And I want both terminals to be hacked before that door opens. So we come over to this terminal and we'll set this one up the same way. So I want any character to be able to hack this. And the time limit is fine. And new logic connection when terminal hacked. Come back over here to the dual action trigger. Man, this is a big toy box. And that will be input 2. And then when both of those have been triggered, the dual action trigger will fire the complete signal. So in response to that, we want to come over to the path, and we're going to do reset and play. And I think actually, yeah, that should work. I was thinking I could go directly to the block, but I think in this case you can go direct to the path. There's a couple different ways we can do this. And we also want that door to go up as well. And the door will go up and stop because we set both of those blocks to one way and stop. So there we go. I think that will do it. So now we can go ahead and test that out. Before that, actually, we should probably save our game. Tower looks pretty impressive. So I'll come in here and save. And there's my description, by the way. And I'll have to let you pause it and read through that. I'll have to scroll down on that too so that you can see that. I'll make sure you get a good look at that here. So just so that you can see the description that I'm using and recreate it in yours. So there's the first part of it, and if I use R to scroll down, you can see the second part of it. And you can pause it to read it and type that in your own save game description so you can make that match. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. So we'll come over here first to this island over here and this terminal. Oops. I'm trying to remember how to hack terminals. That's right, it tells you what you have to press. Y. There we go. That terminal's hacked. And then we'll go over to the other one. And you'll see we hacked that one, but because we're coming into the dual action trigger and we haven't done the other one yet, the doors are still closed. So the player will then have to make their way over to this island, battling the stormtroopers and everything along the way, over to this terminal. X. And that one's been hacked. So now, if we come back to the tower, that blast door should now be open. And it is. And there we are. So now we can access the tower. So when we go in, I'll have a trigger area set up here that will activate a toy box door, which will take us into another toy box for the interior of that. And before we go and close out, we'll go ahead and hide our dual action trigger back here, out of the way. There we go. Nice. So there we have it, a version of Citadel Tower that looks similar to what's in the Rogue One movie, complete with a blast door that we can hack open. Next time we'll work on the transit rail system that connects the different islands to Citadel Tower, which allows the Imperials to move personnel and supplies around. Meanwhile, if you're enjoying this series so far, please give my video a like and tell your friends about it. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel or sign up on my blog so you can follow my progress in this series. If you want to build this in your own toy box, you'll find logic diagrams and build tips on my blog that will help you out. Until next time, this is Professor Toybox signing off from Scarif, and may the Force be with you.